The Avs had a large rotating cast of defensemen all throughout this year, in large part due to injury. One of those that were affected both by the rotation and injury was Mark Barberio. Barb started out this year as one of the success stories from last season, being picked up on waivers and looking better than most of the team's defense. It wasn't exactly clear what Barberio's role would be on this team to start the season, but he quickly developed into a solid two-way guy for the Avs that could kind of play in all situations. At even strength, he quickly saw his minutes increase as he was a reliable presence in the defensive zone that also notched up his penalty kill play, coming in third on the team in penalty kill minutes, at least while he was healthy. His offensive production wasn't great, but with the Avs moving him into more of a two-way role, that was to be expected to some extent, and he was still able to produce and be functional in the offensive zone when tasked with that. Where we saw Barberio really excel with the Avs is his versatility in playing time. The Avs could throw him out there for 20 minutes on a good night or shelter him for around 12 minutes on a bad night, and either way it would still be a good defensive core for the Avalanche. Well, good relatively, at least. After the Duchesne trade, Barberio did see his minutes drop pretty significantly, with Girard playing so well when he first came over to the Avs, and the coaching staff seeming to favor Nemeth because of his defensive abilities. Of course, Barberio would see his time increase again shortly after that because injuries would start ripping through the Avs D-core. Through December and January, Barberio really seemed to find his groove. His offensive production upticked significantly, and he was getting over 20 minutes of ice time some nights. Unfortunately, of everyone on the Avs defensive core who got injured, of the regulars at least, Barberio might have gotten it the worst. Near the end of January, Barberio was held out with an undisclosed lower body injury, and that would basically hold him out for the entire second half of the season. As a fan, it was frustrating because there just wasn't a whole lot of information out on Barberio. It kind of just kept getting pushed to the background. No one really knew exactly what was going on with the injury or what the timetable for his return was. Even still, the Avs would plug on without him and do pretty alright in the second half of the year until Barberio would finally return for the last two games of the regular season. And I feel like a lot of people were left with a sour taste in their mouth out of these last two games and through some of the playoffs because Barberio really did struggle when he returned. His puck movement led to a lot of turnovers in those handful of games, and he also took far too many penalties. On the whole, though, I'm willing to chalk that up to returning from his injury time, and he still should be more of the player he was at the start of this year, at least hopefully. The question is, where does Barberio fit in now in the Avs' current D-core with it coming into the 18-19 season? But before we get to that, on last year as a whole, Barberio scored 3 goals and 10 assists for 13 points in 46 games, and he also added 1 assist in 6 playoff games. Based on his season, I'm going to give Barberio a C+. I would have really liked to make this a lot higher, but it's kind of just the way things go. When you're a bottom pairing type player and you get injured and miss a significant portion of the season, you just run the risk of getting your spot taken, and it matters a lot more for you than someone who has their spot locked down much more. And so that leads us into this coming year. The Avs extended Barberio fairly quickly after the end of last year for 2 years at a little bit less than $1.5 million. So the 2 years indicates the Avs want to hold on to him and use him as a piece. However, many of the other defensemen that they acquired this season have been paid significantly more than that, including Nemeth and Cole. So, assuming the Avs are healthy, locks for their starting defense are Sam Girard, Tyson Barrie, Eric Johnson, and Nikita Zadorov. Without a doubt, all 4 of those should be in the lineup, and then given how much they paid Cole after acquiring him in free agency, you have to put him as the 5th defenseman there, or maybe even the 4th or higher. Point is, those 5 should all be locks for the roster if they're healthy. So that leaves 1 spot in the starting lineup, and it's going to be Nemeth and Barberio pretty much battling for that spot on any given night. If you're asking me personally, I would rather see Barberio in that spot most of the time. However, I'm not sure the Avs coaching staff sees it the same way. Throughout last season, it was clear that the Avs coaching staff put a lot of trust in Nemeth, so they may favor him ultimately, but if Barberio plays as well as he did at the start through the first couple of months of last season, he should be able to earn that spot, or at very least they can use a rotation using both of them. Now, of course, this does bring up other questions for players like Anton Lindholm or Mark Alt, but it's hard to really place them ahead of Barberio or Nemeth at least, so they have to work their way up from below that. Looking ahead past this coming year, that second year of Barberio, it will be interesting to see how he's used with some incoming players like Cale Makar and potentially Connor Timmins if he's ready for the 1920 season to play in the NHL. He may find himself back in his 7th defenseman position ultimately. And for the Avs, that's a pretty good outlook. Look, I like Barberio as much as anyone, but realistically on a cup contender, he's maybe a number 6, maybe a number 7, somewhere in there. So he's a good gauge of the Avs trending their defense in the right direction. That is the end of this player's season review. Thank you for watching. You can find some of Barberio's season highlights right up here. I'm Rudo3, and they better be streaming this rookie tournament stuff.